following subject matter is real and only intended for mature audiences. Discretion is advised.
People are dead after deputies say a man went on a shooting rampage.
I knew a week before she died I was going to kill her.
I can tell you the scene out there is absolutely horrific.
Nobody knows where this individual may strike next.
This is 10-Minute Murder.
Welcome to 10-Minute Murder, brief and bingeable true crime. I'm Joe, I'm the host, and thank you for being here. And you're stuck with me for the next 10 minutes or so, but to make up for it, I wrote you a poem. Here it goes. Starlight, star bright. Why aren't you subscribed to my podcast already? The poems don't have to rhyme, but really now would be a good time to subscribe to 10-Minute Murder because coming the whole month of October, extra creepy stories. Many of them are stories you may have heard about, but you haven't heard me tell you about it, which I don't know if is a good thing or a bad thing. I'll leave that up to you to decide. But you can subscribe right now, like literally right now. Go ahead and subscribe while I'm talking. And what else? I wrote you the poem. Oh, social media. You can connect with 10-Minute Murder on social media, Facebook and Instagram. The links are in the show notes of this episode. There are also links that you can watch these episodes on YouTube. Also, if you're watching this on YouTube and you want to know, hey, where are all the episodes? They are all audio only. Some of them are audio and video. So if you want to hear, like literally nearly 200 episodes, just search wherever you listen to podcasts and 10-Minute Murder will pop right up. Or you can just click the link in the show notes of this episode. It'll take you, like the little link tree thing. It'll take you wherever you need to go to listen to all the episodes. Honestly, though, if you just want to type 10-Minute Murder into a search bar anywhere on the planet, it'll pop right up. And if you do follow, I'm going to love you until the end of time. Amen. So today's episode is super upsetting. There's no easy way to put that. And anytime a kid commits murder, it always throws me a little more than usual. At around 11:30 p.m. on Wednesday, July 22nd, 2015, a call came in to 911 dispatch in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. The operator heard screaming and sounds of a struggle in the background before a young boy's voice saying that somebody was attacking his family. Before getting any more information about what was happening, the call ended after more inaudible screams and someone clearly took the phone from the original caller. The operator searched for the number and was able to track down the address, but after a failed attempt to contact the owner of the house, David Bever, officers were dispatched to the scene at 709 Magnolia Ct. When police officers arrived on the scene, they saw an alarming amount of blood on the front porch. As officers knocked on the front door, they heard a girl's voice inside screaming for help. Once they forced their way in, they saw 13-year-old Crystal Beaver, who had been stabbed repeatedly and her throat slit, but was somehow still alive. After moving Crystal outside to safety, officers returned to investigate the rest of the house, and what they found inside was straight out of a horror movie. That evening seemed like any other evening at the Beaver household. The whole family was home. They didn't get out too much anyway, almost not at all to be precise. According to the neighbors, the family was very quiet and very secretive, and the children didn't leave the home very often. Some neighbors didn't even know the names of all 9 family members. However, it was known that 6 of the 7 children of David and April Beaver were homeschooled and were not allowed to hang out with other children at all. The parents did all they could to protect the children from the influences of the outside world. As David installed security cameras pointing both outside and inside the house, one could only ask if he was more worried about outsiders getting into the home or his family members getting out. However, on the night of July 22, 2015, the cameras witnessed events that nobody would have thought would happen inside the safe community of Broken Arrow. The close-knitted family was suddenly broken from the inside. Everything started when 13-year-old Crystal walked by her brothers 18-year-old Robert's and 16-year-old Michael's room. The 2 boys told Crystal they wanted to show her something on the computer. When she walked in, Robert grabbed her, covered her mouth, and slit her throat. But things didn't happen like in the movies. Crystal didn't just drop down dead after one cut. Instead, she fought back forcing Robert to stab her again and again, this time into her abdomen and arms. Crystal's screams alerted the rest of the family. When the boy's 44-year-old mother, April, heard the commotion, she came upstairs and was stabbed more than 48 times all over her body. Then, as Robert and Michael finished her off with blunt force trauma, Crystal crawled away to warn her father and younger siblings. Unfortunately, her efforts were in vain. Robert and Michael proceeded with their attack, room by room. The next victim was their father, David, who was killed by at least 28 stab wounds to his upper body. According to police reports, Robert had stabbed David with, quote, the biggest knife he had. The brothers then fatally stabbed their 12-year-old brother, Daniel, 21 times, and their 7-year-old brother, Christopher, also 21 times. Their 5-year-old sister, Victoria, 23 times, mostly in the neck. You can safely say that Robert and Michael had the intention to kill, and that they did everything they could do to leave no survivors. The only person left unharmed was the youngest member of the family, 2-year-old Autumn, who was sleeping in her room during the attacks, blissfully unaware of the horrors happening to her family around her. Fortunately, before Daniel had been fatally stabbed, he had been able to lock himself in his room and call 911. And even though the call had not lasted for very long, as the killers found their way inside to Daniel, it was enough to alert the authorities. At the time when officers were behind the front door of the family home, Robert was trying to finish off Crystal, who was still alive. As officers forced their way in, Robert was forced to leave Crystal and escape together with Michael out the back of the home and into the woods. However, the two brothers didn't get very far, thanks to police canine. Robert and Michael were quickly tracked down. There was an alarming sight. At least Robert was wearing a Kevlar vest. Both were covered in mud and blood, and their clothes were torn to pieces. But still, the most disturbing thing was the attitude of the boys. Neither one showed any sign of being upset or worried. As Detective Brett Burton said, quote, they weren't upset, they weren't distraught. It was almost like they had a sense of cockiness. On the way to the station, the brothers didn't utter a word. But once they were in their interrogation room, the sick motives behind their attacks started to unfold. Even though the Beaver children had been isolated from the outside world in real life, they had free access to the internet. Michael and Robert had actually had 2 laptops each. Online, Robert developed an obsession with serial killers and mass murderers, like the Columbine shooters Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold. He didn't really keep his interests a secret, but spoke about them constantly. As Crystal grew worried about her brother's dark obsession, Michael realized that he shared the same interest in murder with Robert. The two boys often stayed up late at night talking and eventually began to formulate a plan to kill 50 to 100 people. Robert said that he hated people, that society was worthless, and the world was overpopulated. It seemed like he had taken influence from not just real-life mass murderers, but from the 2009 movie Rampage, where the main character, a frustrated young man, builds a body armor suit from Kevlar and executes random strangers. And so Robert ordered several guns and ammunition and a full suit of body armor online to be used in his own killing spree. The plan was to kill from Oklahoma to Washington. They wanted to become famous, have their own Wikipedia page as other mass murderers. There was one thing the two brothers had to take care of before moving forward with their big plan: their family. Initially, Robert and Michael planned the killings of their family members to be quiet and tidy. They meant to cut everyone's throat as they were sleeping before dismembering the bodies and hiding them in the attic of the family home. But as Michael said during the interrogation, nothing went according to plan. And so Daniel had been able to call for help during the massacre. Robert and Michael were quickly detained, and they never had a chance to go on their planned killing spree. The police later recovered a flash drive where the brothers stored notes about their plans and video surveillance cameras inside the family home, which they believed also recorded the family side. Investigators also found that Robert and Michael had planned to make videos of the murders to be posted online. Due to the horrific details of the crime, it was not a surprise that 16-year-old Michael was charged as an adult. He and Robert were both charged with 5 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. Initially, the brothers pleaded not guilty. They stated that both their parents had been physically and verbally abusive toward them and their siblings. This explanation, however, did not give any justification for the gruesome murders of David and April, and even less so the slaying of the other children. Especially as clear evidence was found that the boys had planned a much bigger massacre, just got rid of their family as they were on the way to that. Robert later changed his plea to guilty on all counts and was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. It was reported that Robert attempted suicide by hanging with a bedsheet in July of 2016. In 2020, he was given 3 additional life sentences for attacking prison staff with an 8-inch-long sharpened instrument. It's safe to say Robert will never see the world outside of the prison again. Michael faced trial and was eventually convicted on all counts and sentenced to 5 life sentences plus 28 years for the assault on his surviving sister. He was given the possibility of parole because he was a minor at the time of the crime. However, in 2021, a 3-2 ruling upheld the decision to keep Michael in prison for life. Their surviving sisters, Crystal and Autumn, were adopted by a Tulsa family. Their former home was meant to be demolished and turned into a memorial park, but before Broken Arrow City Council was able to come up with the money to purchase the home from the Beaver's mortgage holder, it caught fire under suspicious circumstances. Finally, in May 2019, Reflection Park, built on the site, was dedicated in an official ceremony to the Beaver family's memory. That's 10-Minute Murder for today. Brief and bingeable true crime. Thanks for listening, and as I mentioned in the beginning, be sure you're subscribed because an extra spooky October is about to happen. Wherever you're listening right now, subscribe and you won't miss it. For an added thing, you can also connect with 10-Minute Murder on Facebook and Instagram. I post visuals there that go along with the episodes here. So links to all that are in the show notes, or you can just search for 10-Minute Murder anywhere that you would search. Anywhere there's a search bar, you can type in 10-Minute Murder and it'll pop right up. Thanks for listening. Have a good night.